I got to get to this because there is a man who is not a sissy. There is a man who is such an alpha male that he will tell you personally he is an alpha male, quote unquote. Yeah, you're setting up the. Oh, well, I mean, obviously, Alex Jones is the. I would have to say Alex Jones is probably more genuinely an alpha male than the guy that I'm queuing up right now. This is a man whose accent and goatee belie toughness, a seasoned veteran of terrorism, of the world, such as it is and not as we would want it to be. He's certainly not a guy who had a PhD thesis that would never pass any reputable university in any reputable system in the United States or most of Europe. He's certainly not a guy who built a pseudo-terrorism expertise career based off of his wife's family's wealthy connections and then became an editor at a neo-fascist website after having Nazi sympathies in his home country. And now, when he's supposedly devising plans to destroy ISIS, still spends most of his days apparently worried about what another other terrorism experts say about his credentials. Of course, I'm talking about the great Mandarin collared, I am not a communist, Sebastian Gorka. And Sebastian Gorka, who's been excoriated in this program, as well as other programs that follow the leads of this program, as well as NPR, as well as most terrorism institutions, as well as by members of Congress, was at a forum at Georgetown University on cybersecurity, where he was confronted and excoriated by the members of the audience, young students who might share a certain affiliation with a certain rootless cosmopolitan religion. Here he is. This is Sebastian Gorka at Georgetown University at a security summit, and the good, freshly scrubbed young nerds at Georgetown are going to confront him on everything from his lack of credentials to not speaking Arabic to generally being a complete jackass. And of course, Gorka responds to this the way any red-blooded alpha male would.
I would first like to let you know that the Order of Vites was defined by the State Department as a group under the direction of the Nazi government of Germany. I'd like to make that clear.
Pause it.
Now,
this is the group whose pin that Gorka wears, which
It's
is
my father's.
to honor good old dad, who was not appreciated by members of the, how shall we call it, money-lending community. I wear this along with my Mandarin collar to honor good old dad, not because I'm a communist. Okay, let's keep playing.
as to the question, in a previous piece for Breitbart, you once suggested that mainstream media organizations like the New York Times and the Washington Post supported Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood because they supposedly, in your eyes, had pushed for some sort of peace deal between Israel and Hamas. Now, as somebody who was a former editor at Breitbart, which is a propaganda outlet, a yellow journalism rag, Trump's Pravda perhaps, I want to know how you think that, or if you think that using harsh anti-Muslim rhetoric, like calling groups jihadists or referring to radical Islamic terror, do not legitimize groups like Daesh and like Al-Qaeda. And I wonder if you think that the government also using this rhetoric now, as it has more often in your boss's administration, merely contributes to a greater incidence of radicalization and terror attacks.
Could you quote for me exactly what I said?
I have the piece. It's from, I believe it's from the summer of 2014.
Exactly, word for word, verbatim.
Can you answer my question first,
No,
please?
if you're going to sling accusations against me, a word for word, verbatim quote, because you are lying or misinformed. But I will answer your question with regard to the use of language. I never said anything of the sort, and it's clear you've never read anything I've written.
I went and read approximately 20 of your pieces last night, Mr. Gorka.
I will answer your question. when our Muslim, you have no idea what you're talking about. I spent 6.5 years in the Defense Department.
I have worked with every variety of sand dune operative imaginable. How dare you call me a racist? I know Emiratis and Jordanians and other members of the sand-based community.
The guy sitting on Gorka's left
Yeah.
looks like he is employing every possible
To not crack up.
way of covering his mouth with his
Just doing it like
hand. He's doing different things,
Gonna
yeah,
hide
so
behind
that
the
he doesn't
bouquet.
just laugh or
Yeah. Okay, and now I believe there is a follow-up when Gorka is asked if he speaks Arabic, and then he is going to turn the tables. Sorry? Oh, I'm getting the credit. First, Gorka is going to turn the tables on his questioners and accuse them of something called cultural appropriation, which does not sound like the type of term that a alpha male should be using. And then he is going to get asked if he speaks Arabic. I wonder what the answer is.
To agree with them. You may think you know better than a Muslim who's fighting jihadis on his back door, but I don't. You are committing cultural appropriation and arrogance. I listen to the Muslims because I've worked with them. That's why language matters. When they call them takfiri jihadists, I take that seriously, and so do I.
Just as a clarification question, do you speak Arabic?
Do I need to?
I would say so, if you need to
Why?
understand their
Do
language.
you need to speak Greek to know who Plato was?
But you need to understand his language.
No, to understand Plato? Really? Really? You think that's a
Makes
fact? Next question.
Well, that's interesting because I guess in order to take like intro to Greek philosophy, as I did as an undergrad, and do some tests and write some papers about Plato, you don't need to speak Greek. But if you wanted to teach that class, which my Professor Susan Stark, did, yeah, she actually did speak Greek, and she did do work in the original language. That's why she was able to teach the class
Also,
versus be a student. So the whole, like, I guess to write a blog post or an article or conduct an interview, yeah, maybe. But I guess if you're devising strategy for the White House on that specific issue, yeah, maybe you should know the language.
Also,
To a degree.
communicating with Plato is rather difficult because he's from classical, like ancient Greece.
Right.
Muslims actually exist in the areas that Gorka purports to be an expert on.
It's all the same to me. Gorka left the panel early. There's conflicting reports. One was that he was pissed, so he left early. But then the university has said that he was actually scheduled to leave 1:30, so he left on time. But he has been reported to be seen muttering to himself, and I will do the interpretation.
Stomping around like baby.
Stomping around like a baby, and he said, "I shall upturn my Mandarin Nazi collar and away." How can one? Ooh.
His early.
Oh, you can't upturn a Mandarin collar. Well, how's that for a cultural appropriation? I met a Chinaman once who said, I upturned my Confucian collar, but I suppose you don't take him seriously.
His early exit was not announced publicly either, so that could be cover.
It looks like a little bit of cover. I have a graph. On one side of the graph is leave early. The other side of the graph is Jew students. And in the middle is story.
I was going to mention that you didn't give him enough credit for his mastery of diagramming.
There
And
is
his thesis.
one poll that says, little Jew boy asks questions. Another says, excoriated on Twitter. And then the middle axis says, I work at the White House. You got the graph? Okay, we need to revisit this graph. Here, let me just hold it up. This is a beautiful piece.
It's actually a little bit better than his
Yeah,
graph.
this is Matt's rendition, which makes it automatically slightly more intelligent.
Imagine being a student at Georgetown And getting the email that Gorka was going to sit on a panel and you could go.
Oh
It would
my
just be
God.
such a great moment for you. Like, they look really happy, the people in the
Massive
line.
bong hit and show up and just be like, but I feel like I know I wouldn't be as sincere. I'd be like, dude, how does it feel to like rely on your wife's family getting you like weird speaking gigs now? Like on some level, don't you think part of the reason that you're so freaked out and reactive is because on some deep level, you know that you're completely unequipped to do everything you're doing? Anyways, thanks. Have a good one.
I love that. I love the idea that a whole room full of college students laugh at him trying to use cultural appropriation like that.
Oh, that was great. Well, you know, this is actually, what is interesting is like, so on one hand, we have the Democrats and their obsession with professionalism and credentialism and cleverness for clever's sake and nerdism. And that's a big problem. But the weird thing is that, you know, these people have their own version of meritocracy. It's just that meritocracy has to be condensed to only apply to middle-aged white men who are fairly stupid. It's not like this is the system where they say, hey, man, I don't care if you didn't go to Yale. What are your instincts? What's your intuition? What's your experience? That's a whole other line of argument that's really worth exploring. But what they basically just said was, hey, you wanted to be all these things of the people that got the fancy degrees and worked their way up, but you're just too stupid to do it. So here's your opportunity.
But they buy into that game as much as the people that are actually good at it do.
Right, and that's the key point. Conservatives will make it, and it's appealing on a certain level because it's like, you know, we should have a system where, you know, people from different class backgrounds, maybe someone who went to, you know, community college has major journalism jobs, right? Like, this is a really important thing to not limit that pool of what we deem intelligent and worthwhile and important in conversation. But they're not talking about that. They're just like self-entitled fucking idiots don't have enough space to bloviate. And that is their version of meritocracy.
It's a little harsh, Michael.
I know.
A little harsh.
I know. I'm harsh and Gorka's mellow.
Hey, folks. The Majority Report YouTube page is in a bit of a crisis right now because of changes in their algorithms. Our YouTube revenue has been clobbered. We need your help. Just a couple of bucks a month would really help us out and keep this channel going. Head over to our Patreon page to find out more information. The URL is right here.